I just thought I'd smile at the camera for a little bit, guys. G'day and welcome back to the TryPod Live with Winnie and Clarky. Winnie, I could see you were looking at me like, what is he doing?
Well, it makes no sense to do that on a podcast, but I can tell people who are listening that he is grinning like a Cheshire cat, Clarky,
yes,
unlike myself.
The people that are listening, my ADHD has taken over again, mate. But we're here tonight to recap what was an amazing game by the Queensland Maroons and preview round 14 of the NRL season, of course. Let's get to all that and more. Before we do, let me welcome in my beautiful co-host, the wonderful Winnie. How are you going, mate? And have you got any best bets for us tonight?
I've got best bets. In fact, of course, we're going to talk Origin. There's lots of talking points. How responsible am I for the result last night? I said, and I was partially joking in the thread, Queensland fans can thank me. I even said this before the game, like, have I put my stink on the Blues by backing not only the Blues but unders? And so what happened? Queensland scored 6 tries, 38 points. But, there were some reasons behind that not even I could predict. And we want to jump into that. We want to hear what everyone thought about the game. But we always promise you guys best bets in the first 5 minutes. So I thought, why don't I give you those? You don't have to back them by any means because I am on the all-time, run from hell. And that includes last night, which go into the best bet record as well and make it look even more horrific. Don't forget, in the preview show on Monday, I did already give an early best bet. So just a reminder, that was Warriors plus 6.5, $1.90 on better. And I didn't know at that time how many Warriors starters would return. There were possibly 8 targeting round 14. We've got 6 of them, though we did not get Sean Johnson, but still it's a pretty strong Warriors side. Going into Townsville on Saturday, you've got 6 Cowboys who all played a full game or if not big minutes. Last night, status is still uncertain. Now that line is 2.5 to 4.5. I actually still reckon if you like New Zealand, 4.5 would be all right to jump on today. And I can get into that more how I see it in our full breakdowns. Then I'm going to take West Tigers on Friday night. So tomorrow night, plus 8.5, $1.85 on Toppy. Wests are running last, have not won since round 4. But in their losing run, they've actually been competitive with teams I think are every bit as good as St. George. St. George has 3 key players who may back up. Like, it's a 2-day turnaround. It's a tough one. And while the Dragons are off a great win, I'm less than convinced that that's a standard that St. George can maintain week in, week out. Too many points. I'm taking it with West. I'm also going against your boys, Clarky. So Souths plus 2.5. That is $1.83 on Dabble. Let me back it right now so you can copy from me if you like our Jacob win. I've said it's a long season, too early for Souths to give up. First game, Whiten and Walker play together in the halves, I think revitalises Souths, who also looked pretty good in a 14-point win over Parramatta. You've got like Alex Johnston, Latrell have only recently come back into this team. They all get to play together. I think the Rabbitohs will relish that fast track at Seabus. And while the Titans have showed heaps of spirit and fight, they're still a couple troops short of full strength themselves. Taking under 48 points flat on Saturday night. That is between Broncos and Sharks. So that's the alt total, $1.80 on Toppy. I like unders a lot in this game because I've got 2 teams that gave up 6 tries last week in losses that will definitely be focused on their defense. Both second choice spines or second choice halves combos and both missing their best attacking players in a night game where I expect a high quality match that could be more similar to finals. And as long as nobody gets sent off in the first 10 minutes there, I think that should be a great battle. And that's a very high total. And finally, on Monday, I am taking the Eels minus 1.5 at $1.82 on Sportsbet. You got Moses and Gutho back maybe just in time to save Parramatta's season. The win over Cronulla definitely gives the Eels hope and confidence. It was one of the best wins of round 13 for me, considering that I really thought the Sharks played pretty well. And while the Dogs were also that dominant last week, I can't say the same about Canterbury's opponent. Newcastle were horrible. So maybe the view of the Dogs is a little inflated, a team that I've really liked this year, but no kick out, Adokar out as well. It tips the scales to me to the revitalised Eels, which does mean that I am backing all 3 of the bottom teams on the ladder this week. But what could go wrong?
Well, it's back to the wall stuff for a lot of them when you consider some of those sides, like the Eels in particular, would certainly have had finals in their mind when their season kicked off. So it is getting into that sort of desperate zone. There are our best bets for round 14. We'll get to that and we will go into more depth each game. Before we do that, Winnie, let's recap State of Origin last night. Let's spend a good 10 minutes on it or so. Would you like to go first or do you want me to kick us off?
No, you lead us off, mate.
Awesome, mate. Well, I've got to single out the Joseph Suaalii moment. You know what I mean? It might be cliche. It might be obvious, rather. But it's a call that I believe was right ultimately. Now, there's no doubt that Suaalii did not do that intentionally. But the fact is now in rugby league in the current game, if you rush out of the line and you are reckless in that approach and the ball carrier is injured, then the onus was on you to protect the ball carrier. That's been the way ever since Dale Finucane shot out of the line for the Sharks and made accidental head contact with, I believe it was Stephen Crichton in the Sharks versus Panthers game. He got a whopping suspension for that. The inconsistency, I suppose, comes when Taylor May rushed out of the line and had a head clash with Reece Walsh, and he didn't receive a suspension for that. So there has been some inconsistencies along this journey. But from what we know in rugby league now, that was a send-off. I can see what Suaalii was trying to do, but he got it absolutely wrong. I do believe if this game was 13-13, it does go down to the wire because the Blues were still with opportunity despite being down a man. The way they started that second half was brilliant. And for a moment there, I actually was getting a little nervous as a Maroons fan. The Blues forward pack needs to be absolutely commended here because they did get their side momentum, even though they were a man down, and they were on the attack. I think that's probably why we didn't see Jake Trbojevic as much as we thought we would have. He doesn't really suit that attacking mold and building momentum through your sets like a Payne Haas does or a Spencer Laniu in the middle there. But the halves were just unable to create. Like the Blues had 75% of the field possession in the first 20 minutes of the second half, and they really didn't look that threatening. I thought Jerome Luai and Nico Hines were equally as bad as each other. I see a lot of people online shifting the blame and saying it's all Nico's fault. Don't dare criticize Jerome Luai. The halves are there together to connect and create opportunities. And personally, right now, off the top of my head, I cannot remember a single time where they actually combined together, passing to each other, creating an extra number on the edge. They were disjointed and completely out of touch with each other. Weather conditions held up quite well, considering it was raining all day in Sydney. I expected it to be a lot more of a wet track, which would have brought the Blues forwards into it a bit more. But from what we know now, this Maroons side is more connected. There's more chemistry. There's more cohesion. There's more connections throughout the whole side at Clubland, and that really showed. They looked like a connected footy side, whereas the Blues didn't, despite having dominant periods in that. Now, where this really hurts the Blues, Winnie, they have to make changes. They cannot roll out this same side and expect to win in Melbourne, in my humble opinion, which again does benefit Queensland because they don't have to make changes. So that connection, which was their strength, carries into game two while the Blues need to respond. I think we're looking at a 3-0 sweep, Winnie. The Maroons couldn't do it last year. I think they can do it this year after what I saw in game one. How did you see it, my friend?
So I'll critique myself again. My best bets, I took +2.5. I'm thinking, like, I'm honestly looking at myself going, am I good? Am I still good at predicting the market? I'm not trying with my best bets. I'm not trying to come up with every play where I just think the market will move and trying to get out in front of the market because I don't always believe the market is correct. I think the market can misjudge teams. So I'm not purely just trying to beat the market, but that's part of what you want to do. You want to get the best available. And look, getting 2.5 on the Blues, I mean, that was into $1.70 by kickoff. So there was money late on the day. As Tristan said, money for the Blues late. This is the most scrutinized game so far of the year. So again, if the Maroons were the clear right side, and some people realize that, there would have been some sort of market forces on the Maroons. There were not. So we had a good line going in and total as well. The money came for the under. And that's despite the fact there really wasn't as much rain on the day or on the night as what could have been anticipated. I had under 6.5 tries. Like by kickoff, you could still find $1.75 best price. It was as low as $1.55 in places. We got $1.82. What does it count for? Nothing. And especially when you get a send off early, when the game opens up, and fatigue is a major factor. And there's a lot of long range tries as well as tries off kicks. Look, I've apologized a lot for some of my results this year. I can't apologize a great deal for last night in terms of getting it wrong when you get the game flipped on its head the way it was. I wish I could say that was the first game this year where I had a player sent off in the first 20 minutes, but that wouldn't be the case because I suffered that with Dom Young with the Roosters earlier this year, also a game at a best bet. I wish I could say this was the first game where Reece Walsh got knocked out in the first 10 and it just killed my bet. But no, that wouldn't be the first time this happened. Because, of course, I had the big start with Brisbane going down to Penrith, where Reece Walsh got knocked out 5 minutes in. The only difference was there was no sin bin. There was no send-off in that game. I just lost Reece Walsh for the whole game. It didn't happen in this one. Now I'm against Queensland. And even though Queensland lost their best players, and I completely understand Maroons fans are infuriated by that, and you say there's no doubt it was unintentional. I mean, I don't believe Swali's tried to take his head off, but I do believe that they put a price on Reece Walsh's head. Like, they would key it in. They would definitely wanted to hit him hard and, test the limits of the rules, like whether they wouldn't have minded necessarily rattling his cage, hitting him late in a tip on when when he's facing the centre. I think that's going through Swali's head that they wanted to smash Walsh. It's just, obviously, you can't make contact like that. But that still obviously massively gave Queensland an unassailable edge, because you lose Walsh, but you get a great player to go back there and hammer. You get a superstar back comes on in Cobbo, and you play the game with a man advantage, which is, a greater advantage to Queensland than even what Walsh being out there could have provided. Not to mention the Blues lost Swali for the game, had no other, proper centre to go out there, was instantly exposed. And again, I'm not asking for something crazy like this to happen in my favour to help me win some bets, but I'm just saying, does it have to always go against me? Like, what did I do wrong? I'd love to know. Now, was it a send-off? I agree. Yes, it was. And the main reason, not just the contact, but the launch. When you launch into a tackle like that, then it's all on the onus of the tackler that the contact can't be high, because a launch combined with high contact, I call intentional, let's say no. Reckless, yes. And reckless contact, high, is a send-off. If you want there to be different rules for Origin, I know, and sometimes there can be, but when I saw that, I thought, no, that's definitely a send-off, and it just couldn't be anything else. Can you imagine if Swali only gets 10 minutes, Walsh is not moving, so you knew he was out for the game, and then New South Wales could survive those 10, Swali could come back on, and the Blues could win. And imagine the blow-up by Queensland. Like, I know Blues fans are shattered, and I've seen all sorts of people so angry at Klein for the call. I don't think you can really blame him. I think the refs put in a no-win situation. Do I torch the game, or do I make the wrong call? That's like his only option. So that's where it comes back to me. I actually hate the rule, and I'm not just whinging because I was on New South Wales last night. I've said it every time there's been a send-off. It's just too high a price to pay. It's an entertainment product that that is a $100 million industry, or maybe $1 billion industry when you take the value of all the clubs and the TV contracts and everything. You can penalise a player in multiple ways. You can make it great deterrence to never, intentionally injure an opponent. I've personally talked about make it 20 minutes. That's a massive price to pay, 20 minutes down to 12. And you can't return. If you're sent from the field, you can't return, but allow replacing the player after 20 minutes. At least then you still may get some semblance of a contest, which we didn't get a great deal of. But let us know in the comments, I suppose. Send-off, yes, no, in your opinion? And are you fine with the current send-off rule, yes or no? I'm not. Now, the impossible question that we actually need to try and answer, and that New South Wales needs to answer as well, is what would have happened if Swali was not sent off? Because I need to answer that, because I need to know, was New South Wales plus 2.5 a good bet? And I'm willing to say, no, not really a good bet. I think you have to say Queensland's the better team and Queensland wins with or without a send-off. I mean, the line instantly moved like 16 points. And I think a player sent off with over 70 minutes to go is easily worth 3 or 4 tries. I think if you play 70 plus minutes with one less man, you're going to probably score at least one less try with one less player. And you're probably going to give up 2 or 3 more, which we saw. But Queensland won the game by 5 tries. If Queensland won this by 1 to 10, I'd probably be sitting here tonight saying, geez, without the send-off, I was on the clear right side. But they lost by 28 points. I know people are saying the Blues were brave and there was like a couple of periods. Yeah, games ebb and flow, but it's a 28-point win. And, there's excuses for New South Wales, but you give up the try 4 minutes in. It was 13 aside there, and Hunt, is backing up DCE. and where are the Blues players to stop the try? There's no fatigue in that moment of the game. And what about the 2 tries by New South Wales, by Queensland, straight after Swali was out? Like the Blues weren't fatigued yet, and those came so easily. You can picture those tries, Clarkey, where like there were 3 times as many Maroons as Blues in the frame. Can't blame fatigue for that. That was the Blues opened up far too easily. At the end of the game, there were 3 breakaway tries, which of course is a result of the petrol tank. But again, I would pose the question, if the send-off goes to one of the Maroons outside backs, would they have lost by 28 points? And I reckon probably not. The massive talking point going in, one of them was, should you have a spare back on your bench or not? And both teams lost an outside back inside 10 minutes, which means New South Wales was wrong. No specialist replacement, and Queensland was clearly right. And then I throw it back to you. If you have any different kind of standout players to me, I mean, to me, DCE is ageless. Carrigan, a force that you called. Hammer, what a star he is. Cobbo killed them when he came on, and Hunt always on the spot. For New South Wales, I thought Stephen Crichton was just always classy. Lomax, amazing debut, I have to say. Robson justified his spot. Martin had some massive, aggressive moments, showing that you can launch into a tackle as long as you lower your target. Lenu justifying that pick, and Haas, as always. Were there any standouts to you? And can I throw back to you, because I've spoken for a long time, long monologue here, but can I throw back to you, what changes you would make? Have you had to think about that? If you had to select the sides for game 2?
Yeah, I think immediately if I had to make changes, it really depends on how Mitchell Moses plays over these next few games. The opportunity has absolutely opened up for him, and it is there. He's got one hand on the jersey, in my opinion. He just needs to perform well over this next period. I don't think you can stick with Nico Hines after that. And I think that the 5/8 position has also opened up for someone potentially like Cody Walker. It'll be interesting to see how he goes. I think Latrell is a live option for the centres because Joseph Suaalii will need replacing unless he can overturn that at the judiciary. Certainly seems very unlikely. I missed my only bet in this one, Winnie. I needed Jeremiah Nanai. I needed Valentine Holmes, or I needed Stephen Crichton. I needed just one of those 3 to score. Nanai got so close, but knocked on over the line, and Holmes got over the line, but it came from a knock-on. Teddy did score, so that got us one of our required 2 there. So unfortunately, we missed that one. Sorry there, guys. And final point on this one, Winnie. I just think it's series over. People can say all they like that, it's a rubbish call. People paid so much money for the tickets. There's still a rule book that needs to be applied, and it's not the referee's fault that he applied that rule book. I guess that's my final takeaway. Although it is super unfortunate, and it did take the life out of what is a game we've all been waiting for a very long time. That's the way the cookie crumbles in rugby league. I do like your suggestion, though, of the send-off kind of replacement there, and they would have got Matt Burton come in, so that would have certainly made a contest in this one. Alrighty, let's go.
I wouldn't let New South Wales enact their 18th man. I would just
a regular bench player.
You're down to 3 on the bench as well, but at least you can play with 13 on the park. Now, just a final thought when you say series over, and I know you said you'd predict a clean sweep. Some other people will say it's series over because even if New South Wales wins game 2 in Melbourne, they won't win game 3, right? I will just say I won't give an early play, and why would you listen to me anyway? But if you are inclined to think that this is a mismatch and Queensland's, New South Wales will be scrambling, and Queensland, they won't need to change anything. I mean, the only change I'd even consider for Queensland is maybe Cobbo's too good to even be on the bench, and you start him over Talangi. I don't know. But I will say this. If you like Queensland, you can still play -2.5 in Melbourne on Bet365 right now at $1.90. I can't see that line possibly getting any lower. So that's advice to anyone out there that is looking at the Maroons. If you want to dip into that, I actually do think it's probably the best you'll get about Queensland. I haven't, deep dived that or decided, and probably won't till our game 2 preview. But I know some people like to get out in front of it.
Certainly, man. And the last time the Blues lost game 1 and then won a series where the decider was in Brisbane was actually 1994, so 30 Origin series ago. It's really tough for the Blues to win from here, I think. Alrighty, mate, let's go game by game in just a second. Before we do that, let's welcome in the CEO of TopSport, Mr. Tristan Merlehan, for some exclusive market insights.
G'day punters, Tristan Merlihan here from Top Sport, and we finished another game one of Origin where obviously it's a little bit disappointing with the send-off that really impacted the way the game unfolded. I think it was probably the right call despite what everyone's sort of saying, but yeah, it is disappointing when there's a player sent off so early in the match. Just to give a bit of perspective, Queensland firmed in from about $1.50, $1.60 after that 6-0 lead into $1.04 straight after it happened. The line went from about 5.5 to 19.5 from memory. So it shows how impactful something like that is that early in the piece. We just got our nose in front. There was a late push for the New South Wales side late, and then we were lucky with Hammer and Ben Hunt scoring multiple tries, which negates a lot of those same game multi options. So a tick in the right box there. When we move into a very tricky week though for the pricing, obviously last week we touched on it's tricky because you got a lot of guys making their debut or new players into the side. This week you got a lot of players that are expected to play and may not play, and that adds an element of doubt, and you've got to really monitor the late news, and that's something that we're doing to combat it. We're sort of trying to get as much intel as possible in terms of reading all the stories, looking to see if players are likely to back up or unlikely, trying to read into the number of minutes, but it is a little bit of a lottery, and you've just got to keep an eye on those team cuts and the extended bench and monitor the Twitter in particular to see what happens there. So there hasn't been a stack of movement. I think everyone's just sort of monitoring things to see where everything sits. Obviously, the Broncos game shifted on the back of Reece Walsh definitely out. That went from 6.5 down to 3.5. And then the Eagles have moved a point since we put it up this morning, 8.5 into 7.5. So keep an eye on all the team list. We're all in the same boat here. Hopefully we get some good games of footy. There's some quality games on this weekend, and hopefully as many of the players back up as possible. Good luck and gamble responsibly.
Great stuff from Tristan as always. Thank you very much for that exclusive market insight. Move on to game one, Winnie. We're at Friday, 8 p.m, Wynn Stadium at Wollongong, where the Dragons host the Tigers. The line is set here at -8.5 in the... I've got Tigers' favour here, but I believe it would be Dragons' favour. My apologies. For the Dragons, all their Origin players are named in reserve, so it is a bit of a watch-and-see situation. For the Tigers, Justin Olam is back, Isaiah Papali'i is out, and your favourite player, Brent Naden, makes his return. Now, the Dragons got the job done 24-12 earlier this year, Winnie. Do you think they can repeat that here?
Well, that's it. You've got the, recent matchup where it's worth mentioning it was a pick'em game when they did meet in round 6, and West were very disappointing on that Sunday arvo. However, in that span where I think West have now lost like 7 or probably 8 in a row. I mentioned before some other competitive games by West. Like I'm looking at a Knights game they could have won. Cowboys, pretty close last week. That late try, extends the score. Late try against the Dolphins extends what was a 6-point game late. Dogs game is a 1-score game. And to a lesser degree, West hung with Penrith actually as well. I think that was in Bathurst. And all those sides are as good, if not better, than St. George to me. I know I haven't respected the Dragons enough, and they really made me pay for that a week ago in Penrith. But I still, I prefer to take a team that's fresh off a bye like West, as opposed to a team that had to fight really hard in a tough environment last week, and played when the opponent was idle. Now, I agree that the Dragons are the better team. Clearly, you've got to make them favourites. Sloane's is a gun. Mind you, I like both young fullbacks in this game. St. George at home as well. They should be favourites, but I really do think the Dragons are a little bit vulnerable here. St. George are at their best when they're really playing at that top physicality and edge, and it just does not seem to be something that they can maintain each and every week. And if anything, I could see West with a little bit of an edge, considering that Benji's been called out publicly for having the audacity to have a family holiday and the time off. Remember the Knights Bali trip a year ago, and then the Knights were victorious as underdogs on that weekend when everyone came back. And, huge games last night for Lomax, Hunt, Sewer. I kind of look at it like at +8.5. If all those guys back up, you're still backing up on 48 hours. It may not be at their absolute best. And I'm still okay with the line. But if I get any of them withdrawn, then it's an absolute bonus for me. So I'm playing a West team that some people are going to look at them and say that's a team that's come bottom of the ladder 2 years in a row and is occupying 17th again this year. And I'm just here to say that my strongest opinion is in this game, which leads to the best bet, is that Wests are not a total basket case where they may be viewed by some.
For me in this one, mate, actually, I'll get to my preview in a second. I want to ask you, that 8.5 line, do you think that's factoring the Origin players playing for the Dragons? It's somewhere in the middle.
I
It is
do.
factoring
No,
them
I
playing?
think it factors them in, which means it is a bonus if any are withdrawn.
Absolutely. So by that measure, I would agree with you that if you do think the Tigers are the team you prefer, then you would take them now at that plus 8.5, because when news does roll through that Ben Hunt, Sewer, or Lomax is not backing up potentially, that line will come in, so you're giving yourself the best value. For me, I'm really interested to see what Dragons side shows up, because all year we've been waiting for them to show some consistency to their game, and they've been unable to do so. They had a great win last week against the Panthers in the wet weather, and the Tigers are an easier side. Panthers have 3 premierships in a row. The Tigers have 2 wooden spoons in a row. Do you know what I mean? So it's an easier competition here for the Dragons. But the issue of inconsistency for me remains. I just don't know what Dragons side I'm going to get. For that reason, I do think this is a bit of a tough one to bet on, but I would prefer the Tigers at the line. They are coming off a bye, and there is a huge chance that the Dragons reps don't back up as well, given Origin was only 2 nights ago. And when we talk about DOMs and soreness from footy games, typically it does come hit you hard the second day after, not the first, not the third. Second day is always the worst. I also think Api Coruscant was set for a huge game. I don't think Reece Robson was poor by any measure, but certainly the 2 hooker system is something that Michael Maguire might be looking to adopt in game 2. And if he is, then Api is absolutely a man. The Dragons have won 4 of their last 5 over the Tigers, and they are 2 out of 2 in Wollongong this year. And the Tigers have only won 1 of their 6 away games this year. But I'm going to go against the stats here. My tip is Tigers at the line. Don't forget, Friday Night Footy also means an exclusive Better Same Game multi crafted by Winnie himself. Better also provides further NRL talk and tips in the Fox Sports Lab, which you can check out on their YouTube channel each Wednesday. And always importantly, think, is this a bet you really want to place? For free and confidential advice, call the number or visit the website in this show description. Alrighty, game 2, Saturday, 3 p.m. We're at Seabus Super Stadium on the beautiful Gold Coast, where the Titans host the Rabbitohs. And the line is set at -1.5 in the Titans' favour. And we'll welcome back Kieran Foran, Philip Sammy, and Jojo Fafita. Mweki Fodawaker is also named to back up at prop. For the Rabbitohs, key change here is Walker is back. He's in the halves there with Jack Whiten. All right, Winnie. The Titans have not beat the Rabbitohs since 2016, and our last win over them at home was actually 2009. And by the sounds of it, you don't think we're going to reverse those fortunes this weekend, do you?
Sorry, I don't. Although +2.5, you could.
Yeah.
Kind of like I was hoping for Origin. I was hoping for, Queensland by 1 or 2 would have been all right. I can say the same about the Titans, but last night I was out by 26 points. So my best bet is the Bunnies. It's on the screen as well. I've got a typo on the screen, but if you heard me say it, I've got Brisbane and the Sharks under 48. It's just I typed BRI versus SC instead of CS, so just to clear that up. But just on the note of me having a best bet on this game, I have listened to Nicole's try scorer tip, and it sounds like he agrees with me. I would actually reckon we'll listen to him first.
Hey everyone, I hope your State of Origin hangovers aren't too bad. I'm sure they're better than Reece Walsh's. Really excited to see what Winnie and Clucky have to say about yesterday's game, by the way. No one predicted that. Absolute chaos. Anyways, let's get on to NRL round 14, guys. As always, if you Google Wiki Linktree, actually for once, all our stuff is going to be coming out tomorrow, so on Friday. Odds comparison tool, punters preview, try score picks, and Discord, etc. You can find it all if you Google Wiki Linktree. Tip for this round, guys, I've got Whiten and Cody Walker at $4 and $3.70 respectively on Bet365. Throw the stats out the window. I reckon the Bunnies are going to go and run. I think it's going to be a great game to finally see Cook, Trell, Whiten, and Cody Walker play together. I actually put a few bucks on them just for a little bit of fun at 501 to win the premiership a couple of weeks ago. A little bit on them to, I think it was make the 8 and then make the grand final. Sprinkled a few bucks across those. I think they're going to be a really entertaining team to watch, and fingers crossed that one of them's going to try, because I love those prices.
So I'm glad to see Nicole agrees with me. And also Ryan, I want to shout out Ryan's comment, which is actually on the previous game. Sorry to shoot back, but always love the insights Ryan adds. And he knows his stuff. And I'm glad to see Ryan talking about the Dragons Tigers has gone either team 1 to 12. Now, that's the type of bet you play if you give the underdog a chance. And that would also be another good way to play my best bet. I've got plus 8.5, so the Tigers can lose by up to 8. With either team 1 to 12, you're adding in the key margins of 10 and 12. So you're kind of extending that line all the way to plus 12.5, which I considered. It's just that if you look at the games the Dragons have lost this year, they've had some no-shows where I would not be shocked if the Tigers won that game by a 13 plus. So it seems to always be the case if I like the underdog and I go either team 1 to 12, I get the underdog winning 13 plus. So that's why I played it that way, but definitely another good option there. Now, as for South's Titans, people know I like the Titans. I rate them probably above most, but I've been kind of expecting a letdown spot for the Gold Coast at some stage. They're a team that is not going to be consistently at a high level every week. And yet, I really think you could say the Titans haven't played a bad game since March. You probably have to go all the way back to round 4 hosting the Finns. So that is seriously saying something. In fact, I think we've spoken about the fact that the Titans have covered each and every line since round 4, which would now put them at about 8 in a row against the spread streak. They're almost the anti-South Sydney Rabbitohs. And I'm not expecting a bad game by the Titans in this one either. To be fair, you're at home. You're off a bye. You got a couple of key troops back. Of course, sorry when I say you, because we know how much Clarkey bleeds blue and gold, at least at club level. But that win could really instill a lot of confidence and prove to them that there's method to Dez's madness. So I can appreciate the Titans will be up for this one. And I am a little bit worried seeing a name like Jaden Campbell in the reserves because he could return. But there is still no Brimson, no Jolliffe. Of course, Souths don't have Cam Murray, but you don't have Tino. Those two influential forwards kind of cancel out. But I am playing on the Bunnies for similar reasons to what Nicole has outlined there. I saw the signs that the effort was increasing. I saw that really ever since they lost Demetrio. I mean, actually, even in those last couple of games, there were signs that this team was fighting. But the Dragons game, off and on, the Cowboys game, Magic Round, was pretty competitive. And then the Bunnies were dominant in a win over Parramatta. And I think that they've been plagued by a lot of expectation. But at this point, Souths are playing pressure-free. No one expects anything out of South Sydney. And, it might be a bit of a square take, but I just visualize the game and I'm looking at this lightning track C bus and I'm looking at, okay, I know you'll probably say, and a lot will say, Fafita's going to be in for a big game because he was snubbed for Origin, but you got someone like Latrell who was also overlooked and has just watched the centre be sent off. So clearly there's an opening there. I think Latrell, who gets to play alongside AJ, Whiten and Walker in the halves for the first time together, Damien Cook. I think this game should pick them to get 2.5. I'm willing to play this South side that I think the line is a little rich because they carry very little trust with the punters this year, obviously being the least profitable team to back in the comp. And arguably the Titans have been the most in terms of the handicap. But that's where this line may have actually adjusted a little bit too far in my view.
Well, for me, I like my Titans here. I've really enjoyed our football over the past 6 or 7 weeks, and I do believe we've been the more consistent side than the Rabbitohs, even though we're only slightly ahead of them on the ladder there. Both sides are coming off a bye, but I do think that benefits the Titans more. We had a giant injury toll against the Broncos, and we just needed a week to rest and reset. The Rabbitohs are still conceding 34 points on average this year, and they're also averaging 12 errors per game. I think Kieran Foran being back for the Titans at home will absolutely be a key because he'll really provide that leadership and guidance and help the side be patient, remain composed, and pick their moments, really sticking to the game plan. From there, I expect points to come, and the Titans' defense has been improved every single week so far. In turn, I see that frustrating the Rabbitohs, Latrell, Cody Walker. These are players that don't play their best when they're frustrated and do come up with more errors when they're under the pump. That being said, I'm not going to, go out there and say Latrell or Walker are going to have a bad game. I think there's definitely a huge chance they fire, especially with Origin spots up for grabs. And when they do fire, they are two of the best attacking players in the competition, hands down. So if you do like the Bunnies in this one for your bet, that's absolutely a huge factor in my opinion. But I like the Titans. I think we win at the line, and I'm going to tip a Lofiana Khan Pereira to get over for a try there. Alrighty, game 3, Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Queensland Country Bank Stadium. We're up in Townsville where the Cowboys host the Warriors. This line has moved from earlier this week when we tipped it at 6.5. It's now 2.5. For the Cowboys, their origin players are named on the extended bench, so another watch and see situation. For the Warriors, they welcome back Charles Nickel-Klugstad, Wade Egan, Rocco Berry, Hanfanua Blake, Kurt Capewell, and Tohu Harris. So there's 3 or 4 rep players in there. That is incredible. Warriors are going well over the Cowboys recently, Winnie. They've got 5 wins from their last 7 games together, and you think they can continue that and upset them in Townsville?
Well, they don't need to upset them, but, getting 6.5, if it's a good game, then we'll be in good stead. We can add it to a long list of best bets this year that beat the closing line by a key number at least. I mean, as you said, we took 6.5 on Monday, and it is now 2.5 on Toppy, but I did want to note, still a 4.5 available, 365. But in any case, this line's not going to get out above 6 again. And I think that's even if all the Cowboys back up, which is why I use that term asymmetric risk. There was only really variables that could all go against North Queensland. And there wasn't much I could see that could push that line any further out. So does that mean I think we're going to win? There's no way I can be very confident with what's happened, in the last few weeks. But all I can really do is try and come up with bets that have a better expected value than winning half the time, which of course 6.5 should in a game where a team is plus 2.5 and a very live underdog. And I see these teams really similar as well, similar profiles. It was 2022 where the Cowboys broke out and believed they could make a grand final and fell, just short. And as did New Zealand last year, losing in the prelim. And both similar rosters coming into 24 with high expectations. But then both North Queensland and New Zealand really disappointed in the first couple of months by and large. And you're starting to say, it's just not their season, but hold your horses because it was still early after round 8 or 9. Not everything had been decided. And both these teams are back on track. I think they both won back-to-back games and both have that incredible win, that season-turning win perhaps. For New Zealand, it was Magic Round against Penrith. And for the Cowboys, it was Sunday against the Roosters, missing 6 origin stars. So now you've got North Queensland coming home. Both sides are going to be confident. Of course, the Cowboys are tough to beat in Townsville. So you've got to respect that. You've got to factor that into the line. But the conditions shouldn't really be an issue when it's a night game in June. It's a pretty good time for a New Zealand, for an Auckland side to have to go and visit. You mentioned all those huge ins for the Warriors. I mean, the bye came at a great time. Maybe 1 or 2 of those guys could have come back earlier, but it's the bye's going to be there. Make sure they're going to be right as rain. And not only that, they deliberately sat out AFB, who hasn't been injured. He comes back in. Now, you'd want to trust that he's going to lead the way and be one of the best props in the comp like he was before, even if he may be slightly disgruntled. I'm sure that the teammates still got the respect of the team and will want to re-earn that trust. And I look at Johnson is out, but Tamari Martin's been awesome in his absence. So of course North Queensland have got these game breakers. I worry about Scott Drinkwater and some of these origin stars, but I don't know if they're all playing or not. You've got to look at it all 5 Queenslanders are going to hold their spot, and Robson did enough to justify his position for the Blues. All 6 of these Cowboys reps are going to play a big part in the series. Payton has to recognize that and be smart about how he uses these guys because he doesn't want to burn out the core of his team through the middle of this year, especially when you have to trust that the B team went out and got your best win of the year on Sunday. And, is there a case to reward guys with another opportunity? So I reckon the Cowboys should rest some of their players if in doubt, because it's a 3-day turnaround. It is a tricky spot. And that's why I would actually say play the plus 4.5 on New Zealand. at 365 right now, because I reckon that's what it would close anyway if all the Cowboys play, and it could easily drop. New Zealand could be a favourite by kickoff if multiple Cowboys are out, and ultimately I think it's going to be a beauty of a contest. It's not your typical 13th versus 10th. These are two teams that absolutely believe they've got finals credentials and know how important the 2 points are in this one as well.
Well, I am sorry to TryPod admin Jeff, but I am absolutely with you in this one, mate. I went the Warriors head-to-head when you gave that tip out, and I got them at $2.56, which I'm really happy with those odds. And to be honest, I've really loved what I've seen from them in the past fortnight. And when we talk sides that needed the bye, it was probably them, the Titans. They're probably, neck and neck for who needed it the most. What really did impress me, though, about the Warriors was the DNA that made them so successful in 2023. All those 1%ers and hard work, that was what won them the games. It wasn't like they went out there and absolutely blitzed the Panthers and then blew the Dolphins off the park. They fought for everything and they backed each other, and there was a real hearty effort about everything they did. With a more settled lineup and some huge names returning to that forward pack, I think that this is going to be the best Warriors side we've seen in a while. I'm going to go them here for the outright upset. I think they can make it 3 wins in a row here, especially if the Cowboys reps aren't there or even some of their reps are out. We're talking guys like Ruben Cotter missing the game potentially, and that would allow someone like Adam Fanua, Blake Toehouse, Kurt Capel to really dominate in the forwards there. So I think that the Warriors will be very fresh off the bye. My tip is the Warriors head-to-head here. And if you don't remember, Winnie, I am very good at picking upsets for the Warriors in Townsville. 100% record, 1 from 1. Alrighty,
Remember
game 4.
it very well last year. And
it was a great call.
Warriors were like a 10-point underdog on that occasion.
Yep, and that was before we all knew the side that they were. Sorry, you guys can hear my kid in the background. My missus is sick in bed at the moment, so we'll move on to Game 4, Saturday, 7:35 p.m. Suncorp Stadium up in Brisbane. The Broncos host the Sharkies, and the line is set at -3.5 against the Broncos. Reece Walsh is obviously out. All other Origin reps have been named, and they welcome back Tony Staggs also. For the Sharkies, they've opted to rest Nico Hines. Cameron McInnes is included. Teague Wilton is out. So Siosifa Talakai moves to back row. Alrighty, Winnie, the Sharks have conceded a huge 106 points in their last 3 games. How do you think this one plays out for them?
That's part of the reason why I'm actually playing unders, because I think the Sharks team that was top of the ladder, were they not 9 from 10 to open the season? It's fallen away a bit on the back of the defense, and like maybe the warning signs were unnoticed at Magic Round, giving up 32. I think it was around 32 or 30 points to the Roosters because they scored 38 themselves. But then alarm bells should have been going off when they got pumped 42-0 at home, and you follow that just getting stripped too easily against Para. Mind you, Para was hot, right, for sure. And Para is a great attacking side when you got Moses at the peak of his powers and Gutho back and playing at home. But you said it there, like the Sharks defense has fallen off a cliff, but I know the DNA of this team and the ability of this team can defend a lot better than that. So my best bet is under 48. Just to let you know how I got there, I don't land on a lot of totals, but I just really was looking at Cronulla's chances, but then I really thought it's going to come down to their winning on the back of their defense. But I was worried about going against Brisbane because I also think Brisbane will be dialed in defensively. And that's another team that's been right at the pointy end of the ladder for the last couple of years. And the calling card of Kevy has been the defense. So then I saw the total around 46.5. I'm like, I know that games have been higher scoring recently, so these totals are creeping up. The bookies have just got to adjust them and make these totals higher. But I feel like a lot of these games where you're getting a lot of points is where a team comes in lacking focus, or you get blowouts. And I just don't see this game as a blowout, and I don't see either team coming in casual. You got a Broncos team that's off, a loss that really stings at home, and you got a Sharkies team that's trying to avoid 3 straight defeats. So anyway, I saw the total was 46.5. I thought I would play under that. Then I found 47.5, $1.85 on Dabble. Well, even better. You never know if a field goal gets kicked. And then I found under 48 flat, $1.80. So I'm like, well, for 5 extra cents to not lose on a key number like 48, that's where I got to. So under 48 points in this one is my best bet. Because I think that Cronulla will put in a really good show here. Yes, there's no Nico, but you've still got like capable halves, but you're also not going to be at your absolute best in attack because clearly, Nico's the orchestrator and the best goal kicker. But for that matter, with no Walsh either, that's your best attacking weapon for Brisbane on top of your best 2 goal kickers out for the Broncos as well. If you do prefer the Sharks to my best bet, I did find +4.5 on Dabble. But then I thought, I don't really want to bet against Brisbane this week. Like, they're at home for what? They've been at home for a month. They're off a bye, the Broncos, who are also off their worst loss of the season. And I know that this Broncos team's capable of elite defense. I've talked before about how I think they've been scoring some wild tries in some unsustainable ways. And no doubt they probably will score a couple again. Like, there's still some great attacking players in this game, but a total of 48 can have a couple of crazy tries, just nothing, too wild. And the fact that Walsh isn't there, brings the offensive ceiling of this team down. I just really think both of these sides will lean into their defensive fundamentals here. McInnes is likely to back up. I can't remember how many minutes he got, but I feel like it was only about 40 in the game. And I presume most of the Broncos reps back up as well, but I'm not really concerned if 1 or 2 doesn't either. If someone like Cobbo doesn't play, all the better for this bet. If someone like Carrigan's in, that's only going to tighten up the middle. But if he's out, it brings the 2 teams closer together, which is okay for me too. So I'm not really sweating that. Staggs is a nice inclusion to get back from the rib injury. And again, we talked about that Origin centre spot. So Staggs would be a smoky for the Blues if he really killed it in this game. Don't forget about Ramian either, who before the Sharks slide may have had a really good claim for a rep honours himself. Who's going to play fullback for Brisbane now? I presume Sailor.
He's injured at the moment.
Returning from injury. He's in the reserves. Otherwise, it could be Cobbo, right? And we know he can do a job there for sure if he does back up from Wednesday. Again, it's not me saying there's no points in these sides, but it is me saying this is a type of matchup that you could very easily see occurring in the finals. And I actually think we're going to get a finals intensity given both these sides are looking to bounce back from really disappointing recent results.
I actually like the total of 48 there. Now, it's not really a play you give out typically. Usually you go away from the overs, unders markets, but I do think there's a lot of value there. I had a look at it statistically. Both sides are scoring a combined 50 and conceding a combined 40. So if we go on average of what these 2 sides are capable of this year, and we know they'll probably be a little bit under because there's no Walsh and Hines, that gets us at about that 45 mark, man. And we got to take some points off with no Walsh and Hines. So I really like that one a lot, actually. I would feel comfortable backing that. As far as the winner goes in this one, I like the Broncos here, particularly in Brisbane. I feel like even without Reece Walsh, they are the more settled lineup. No Hines for the Sharks for me is a big concern. Their attack has not looked fluid at all these past 2 weeks without him. They did have some nice moments against the Eels, but I felt like that was predominantly coming from Will Kennedy. And the Broncos are a side that are very good at shutting down spines that only have the one standout player. Where the Broncos have struggled is against sides like Penrith, where all 4 spine players influence the game. So I think they'll be able to shut down Will Kennedy. I don't see him having as much impact in this one. Coming off the bye for the Broncos and a bad loss to the Titans at Suncorp. I'm not trying to be funny as a Titans fan, but the Broncos shouldn't have lost that game. They're a better side than us. I'm happy to say that. I think Kevin Walters will really emphasize the importance of defending the home turf. And the Broncos fans are going to relish this. It's a Saturday night game. You don't get that too often as a Broncos fan, typically Friday night. Suncorp will be pumping with Queenslanders that are on a high at the moment after Origin. So I expect a big energy burst from that crowd there for the Broncos. Sharks also struggle at Suncorp normally. They only have a 33% win rate there. I think they've only won something like 8 times throughout history at this venue. So it's a venue that's very good for the Broncos and a very tough one for the Sharkies. My tip is the Broncos head-to-head. Game 5, Sunday, 2 p.m, Amy Park. We're in Melbourne. Storm hosts the night. Game 5.
Sorry. I interrupted you, and I was wrong as well.
That's all good. No, yeah, you scared me, though. You definitely scared me. So the Storm do host the Knights, and that line is set at -12.5 against the Storm. They have named Harry Grant and Xavier Coates. Will Warbrick is out, so Grant Anderson moves to the wings. No change for the Knights, and I'm sure Knights fans are scratching their head at that. All right, Winnie, the Storm have beaten the Knights every single time they've played them in Melbourne, dating back to 2015. Do you think they can repeat that effort again here?
Yeah, absolutely. I expect that. I mean, Melbourne are so used to having a lot of players involved in Origin. What a luxury it is to only have two for Bellyaches boys and off a bye as well. All the more reason the Storm put their best foot forward here. Amy Park's been a fortress. I know the Knights have no Origin players, right? With just Ponga Origin caliber, but sideline. I'm just so frustrated with Newcastle. I've got to say, like I really rated them last year, and that they did kind of vindicate my thoughts about the Knights. And then this year, I just haven't liked them as much. But they've found a way, haven't they? Like, I mean, particularly the ones that bug me is the Wests and the Warriors wins where they dig deep, they're really tough, and they get those narrow wins where I had best bets. They also narrowly beat both of our teams. Luckily, I didn't have best bets on the game, but still, that hurts us for our fandom. I'm talking about Newcastle getting the tight wins at Suncorp, both of them over Titans and Dolphins. But then Newcastle comes home in just a wonderful spot. Like we talk about the style suits the rain, and the Dogs are as depleted as you are ever going to see Canterbury this year. And Newcastle's nothing short of putrid. So now you have to go down to Melbourne, a team that is top of the comp. Somehow Melbourne's off a loss, but tops the comp by virtue of picking up points during a bye and the Sharks losing. And I assume that now we're moving to Sunday. I assume every Origin player backs up unless there actually is an injury. Grant being the captain, especially, and Coates had a massive game, but again, probably backs it up. And I think the fact that Newcastle beat the Storm, I think we were on a best bet on the Knights on that day. There was a lot more in Newcastle's favour that day, not only just being at home, but there was no Munster or Hughes in that one. And Jerome is back now. And what I've really admired about Melbourne, which I didn't really give them enough credit for early in the year, is probably the development of the pack. I'm kind of looking at the back row, and I include, starting lock in that. As players that are, real difference makers, where I thought that may have been a weakness. It hasn't been. So I think the Storm are going to stomp the Knights, honestly. They could only play the favourite this one. I know that'd be a pretty obvious and popular pick, and I haven't quite got there just because, now we've got a line beyond 2 converted tries, but I can, honestly, Clarky, I can hear Adam O'Brien's excuses already.
Yeah, certainly he is known for an excuse or two in the press conference. For me, I just can't look past what I saw from the Knights last round. It was very poor. Their spine lacked any sort of cohesion, any sort of connection. There was no creativity. There was errors. It was really poor. And this patient style of gameplay that they did have for that 4-game win streak, that ship has well and truly sailed. And the Storm are too defensively sound for that game plan to work. I can almost guarantee down to my bottom dollar that if the Knights play patient in this one and think they're going to show poise and slowly break the Storm down and come over the top with a high completion rate and safe sets, it ain't going to happen. The Melbourne Storm are just too good defensively for that game plan to work. No doubt the Knights are looking for a response, but when you're looking for a response and you have to go to Melbourne to do it, it's probably the hardest place in the NRL to play. So I do like the Storm here. They've won 15 of their last 17 in Melbourne. Those games was a loss to the Panthers at Marvel Stadium and the Sharks recently at Amy. Apart from that, we go all the way back to round 2 last year for the Bulldogs. So they've dominated in Melbourne for a long time now. I like the Storm to cover the line, and I like Xavier Coates to back up for a double. He has 28 tries in his past 23 games at Amy Park. It's a venue where he can score from anywhere. Just ask the Warriors.
Look out, New South Wales in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, Coatesy. Alrighty, Game 6, Sunday, 4 p.m. We're at Bluebet Stadium again in Penrith. We've got Panthers v Manly, and the line is set at -7.5 against the Panthers. Their Origin reps are named. Manly have named their Origin reps also. A fantastic upset for the Seagulls earlier this year, winning at Brookvale when these two sides met. Do you think history can repeat itself here?
I just realised when I said look out New South Wales that Origin 2 is not being played at Amy Park. So
yeah, close enough.
But let's just say he's hard to stop when he plays
in
Melbourne. Now, you know who was hard to stop last time these sides played was Manly with the upset win on a big occasion at Brookie over the Panthers. I think that actually works against them in this one. Penrith's a bloody hard team to beat twice. I haven't got a bet on this game. For one, it's definitely one of these games where I find it extremely hard to predict because I'm just not sure who's going to back up. I suppose I did say before that by Sunday, it's reasonable players would back up. But the difference is Penrith's a team that just expects to play all the way through to October every year and comes in with a plan. Unfortunately, it's not always a predictable plan. Like Ivan has mixed and matched his strategy each year in terms of when he sits his stars out, if it's all of them, some, or none. I'm sure that Ivan loves to keep the rest of us guessing. So it's like nothing's going to shock me here. If all 5 Blues players are suddenly sitting out, I couldn't risk touching Penrith tonight because I'm sure, knowing the way I'm going this season, that all 5 would be ruled out tomorrow. I would say certainly Edwards won't play. I know he's named on the extended bench and they said it's not a severe quad issue, but if you weren't right to make your Origin debut, you shouldn't risk it on Sunday, and Penrith don't need to risk it. The market says to me at 7.5 that the other Origin stars should be backing up for both teams. It was a very head-scratching second half display by Penrith, which certainly burned me. But this game gives Penrith a chance to redeem themselves, being at home again. And I also find Manly a tricky team to judge, which, if we're being honest about it, I haven't judged a lot of teams well this year at all. But you look at Manly, it's a squad that's still got a high upside, not so much without Turbo at the moment, but a team that when they're on the front foot, it's like Cherry Evans just totally can control a game. The likes of Hamole is unstoppable when his team has momentum. And the backline athletes of this Manly side as well, they're really good at harnessing momentum and making hay when the sun shines. And that was the case on that Sunday Arvo Saturday Arvo, the afternoon game against Penrith, where they got the win. But it's a bit of a different equation now. Both fullbacks really start on that game. And as I said before, I find it highly likely that Edwards joins Turbo on the sideline. Hopewadi chosen by Seabold at fullback is interesting. He makes that back 5 even more exciting. And I think that Manly will make Penrith pay if Penrith aren't at their top trademark intensity. However, because Penrith's off a bad loss and lost last time they played Manly, and the New South Wales players may all back up, they are also a team that can really put the pressure on the opponent. And the reason that I don't trust Manly as a true contender is because when the Seagulls are up against it, they are not very tough. They find it hard to really go with the stronger sides in the comp when the acid is on. So what type of Penrith, who's playing and what type of Penrith turns up for this one? To turn up with, total focus and application, then Penrith should cover this line. But it's still an unknown to me. And the only other thing I'm looking for is, does Seabold double down on his foursome backs tactics? If you recall the matchup between these teams last year, kicking on the first tackle. It was a bold strategy, that's for sure.
I think he forgot that he was no longer coaching rugby union when he came up with that game plan. It was very, very weird. For me, you can't really preview this game without going back to their previous encounter because it was quite recently. But I actually do view that one as a little bit of an outlier. I think Manly got a bunch of confidence from that win, and Penrith weren't at their best. You look at the Seagulls from that point. They drew against the Warriors in New Zealand, and they went down to the wire with the Titans. And if you are beating the Penrith Panthers as easy as the Manly Seagulls did that day, I was about to say the Melbourne Storm, as Manly did that day, then the Warriors and Titans, in the form they had at that stage, were two sides they definitely should have handled with ease. This time around, I feel like it's going to be different. I think the Panthers will be very switched on, and I think they'll be intent on a little bit of revenge there. They are at home, which absolutely helps, especially given they lost last round there. There's also a little bit of pride on the line because of how well they have defended their home turf for a number of years now. I think they're the better side than Manly. I don't know who's going to back up from each side yet, so if I've got to give a tip right here and now, I'll say Panthers to win. Manly's last win over the Penrith was actually their only win over them in the last 9 games they've played. So there is more evidence that it was a little bit of an outlier. And the Panthers have not lost back-to-back at Bluebet for 2019. So they'll be breaking a 5-year record if they lose again this week at Bluebet, because they lost last week there to the Dragons. So got to take the Panthers here.
That's an unreal home record.
It is. It's crazy,
Never lost
isn't it?
back-to-back home games for 5 years.
For 5 years, yeah. And that's not like back-to-back weekends. That's like, they could play one at home.
2 in a row at home.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's crazy. They defend that turf so well. We've just hit the hour mark, mate. Do you want to do the Eels preview now, or do you want to push it to the Monday show?
Let's go through it. Give everybody everything we've got.
Alrighty, guys. Final game of the round, Monday, 4 p.m. We're at Accor Stadium in Sydney, where the Bulldogs host the Eels. The line is set at -2.5 against the Eels. They have Blaze Talangi at centre, and Jermaine Hopgood is named for the Doggies. And my dog is barking again, which is every time I preview the Dogs, he barks, mate, doesn't he? Sexton remains in the halves. Critton and Burton are named. Interesting one here, Winnie. On form, you say Bulldogs. But there may be some origin implications for Mitchell Moses, in particular, if the Eels play well. Have you got the Eels in this one for a best bet? I believe you did.
Yeah, I went -1.5, $1.82 sports bet. And I'm not a big one on like milestones, but you've got a club captain who's beloved by his fans and teammates alike. If you take Parramatta, you can be pretty confident they'll be right up for this one. Now, it is another rematch. And I think the line in round 1 was 6.5. So you've shifted that line a fair bit, which I understand that the marketplace has upgraded the Dogs. But, Parramatta might be as good right now as what we thought they would be in round 1, with obviously Moses and Gutho back on deck. Parramatta's 15th, but they're only 2 wins outside the 8. They're only 2 wins behind the Dogs. They could be looking at the Dogs as the type of team that they want to leapfrog and grab a finals position. So I think that's absolutely still the expectation of Parramatta. And Gutho said as much last week, which is partly why I'm kicking myself. I played against Parramatta for a best bet last week. What I didn't know going into the Sharks game is that Gutho's going to be totally fine. Moses is going to have flames coming off him in his first game, in 2 months. But now I have seen that. So now I know that that's an incredible amount of confidence and that makes every other player better. And I'm particularly looking at this backline's probably as strong as they've named all year. And I know that Simonson's out, but I think Talangi's every bit as good. And Sivo has missed some games. I've nearly forgiven him for killing me against Manly. He can redeem himself in this one. Dylan Brown is still a star. I think a player that has struggled a lot without Mitch, but with him back to partner in the halves, Brown can shine just as much as Moses, especially if the defense turns their attention to Moses. And I slightly favour Parramatta's pack as well when you consider Kikau is the Dogs' best forward and is injured. There's also Madison in the reserves, possibility that could bolster the Eels further. Both teams are off long turnarounds. And look, the Dogs will probably play pretty well here too. They get back Crichton, who's as dangerous as any outside back in the world. Burton clearly, didn't have to play Wednesday. He's going to come in. And this is a game Madge will be watching very closely. Maybe the Blues game 2 halves are in this match. I think if it was me, I'm picking Burton Moses, right? But either one can definitely stake their claim with a massive game and leading their teams to victory in this. And then there's a cheeky Queenslander who plays for the Dogs who used to play for Parramatta in Reid Marnie that will add a bit of spice to the contest as well. But when it comes back to me, I think I've got the better team in Para. I've got the occasion, King's birthday no less, as well as his big day. And Para needs the win a little bit more given ladder positioning. That's why I've taken the Eels, my best bet.
Here's a fun fact for everyone. The Bulldogs are actually the only undefeated side at home still this year. Every other side is lost at home by the Bulldogs. And why I think that's so crazy, Winnie, is Accor Stadium, in my opinion, is the least advantageous ground to have as your home stadium. It's too big. There's not as much atmosphere as like a Bluebet stadium. So the fact the Bulldogs have done that is insane. But where I'm going to go the Eels in this one, the Bulldogs have not won 3 in a row since 2019. So we're going back 5 years as well. They're currently riding a 2-game win streak. So they need to get this win to break a 5-year curse over the club. But they won't. Mitchell Moses will absolutely explode here. With another week of training, fitness, and a game under his belt, the fact he now knows that the jersey he once wore is absolutely up for grabs in the Blues there, He will explode in this one. Mitchell Moses' kicking game will be too much for the Eels. His fast ball movement will be too much for the Bulldogs, But he's not the spine player I'm going to single out. It's Clint Gutherson's 200th NRL game. He's known as the King. It's the King's birthday public holiday. So my multi here is Eels at the line and Gutherson anytime try. I'm going to back him for first as well. In addition to that, Winnie, the last time my dog barked whilst I was previewing the Bulldogs game, the Bulldogs went on to lose. I'm just reading between the lines here. I can confirm I'm on both of those bets there, and we're going to get an Eels victory here, and Gutho's going to score. And that's just science. Sometimes there's just a science to it. It's as simple as that. Your thoughts on those bets?
You know what? Not only do I have a best bet there, and I know you're going to ask me to recap those, but I've got the mixed matchup. Sometimes I can't get that organized in time for the live pod Tuesday, but with the Thursday night, I've negotiated that one with Tristan, and it's a pretty juicy one too. It involves the final game of the round, and it involves the first game of the round. So I'm taking the Tigers to outscore the Bulldogs. Now, that is $3 odds on Toppy, $100 max stake. TP Live is our referral code with Toppy, and it's a great price to me for two teams that I see scoring around the 20 mark. I'm looking at Wests coming in tomorrow against the hot and cold Dragons with nothing to lose, and they are my best bet. And then I'm going all the way to Sunday, thinking we've got a tight, high-quality game between Dogs and Eels, where what we've spoken about, the biggest strength of the Dogs is actually their defence. And Canterbury's best chance of getting any type of result or keeping it close to Para is not outgunning the Eels, but it is keeping it low-scoring. And Parramatta needs to be buttoned up defensively as well. So I kind of think the Dogs can be kept under 20 on the Monday, and as long as we've got, if the Tigers can score 3 tries tomorrow, then $3 odds is pretty juicy. I mean, another way to look at it, the Tigers are a $3 chance of literally winning, of getting the upset tomorrow. And the Dragons are predicted to score like 26 points, but the Doggies only predicted to score about 21. So, if you think the Tigers any chance of outscoring the Dragons tomorrow, $3 odds about this bet's probably also a decent play.
Tell you what, Winnie, this comment section is probably the craziest we've had. We've got someone in here trying to box me at Seabus Super Stadium, asking people who will win a fight. We've got Harry saying that he's going to back the Eels, but only because my dog barked. Tell you what, Harry, if the Eels get up for you, mate, we'll bring my dog in for a special appearance on the podcast on Monday on the recap show. We'll hold him up to the camera. We can all call him a good boy. Otherwise, I won't feed him for a week. I'm only joking. No one call RSPCA. All righty, Winnie, recap those best bets for me one more time for people that might have joined the show late.
Okay, so we had the early play, Warriors plus $6.50, $90, but I have said if you like the sound of it, 4.5 on 365 still a pretty solid play. I've got the Tigers plus 8.5, $1.85 on Toppy. What's crazy to me is that everybody knows how badly I'm going this year. We don't hide it. People tell me I talk about it too much. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible. That line's already into 7.5 from what I've seen. Okay, but the best bet was Tigers plus 8.5. Then Souths plus 2.5, which I also seen has disappeared on Ladbrokes and Neds. I'll have to check whether Dabble has changed the price. That's my next best bet. Then, as we've spoken about a bit, Saturday night, the unders. I don't look for total plays. They look for me. And this one was shouting out to me, under 48 points, Broncos Sharks, and that hadn't moved either, $1.80 on Toppy. Finally, the Eels, minus 1.5 on Sportsbet, as we've just both covered. We both agree on that one.
We agree on pretty much all the best bets this week, mate. So I'm calling a sweep. Fingers crossed we can get on here on Monday and celebrate a huge weekend up to that point. And then, of course, we still got the mixed matchup and a best bet to ride Monday, which will make the public holiday that little bit more exciting. All right, everyone, we're just over that hour mark now. So it's at this point we want to say thank you so much for joining us for the TryPod live recap show for our Origin and our preview for round 14. We absolutely appreciate your viewership. We don't take it lightly, and we look forward to seeing you on Sunday, 15 minutes after the Panthers game. Thank you very much for myself, and over to you, Winnie, to farewell the show.
Well, I appreciate your positive sentiment. I've had a lot of people positively messaging me and saying, awesome pick on the Warriors, and mate, I like your picks for Origin, and I reckon you're just about to turn it around. You're just about to go on this great win streak, and I was really excited for Origin. Reluctant to go against my state, but that's how I saw it, and I was looking forward to a great game. And then 7 minutes in, it all went up in flames. So I, at this point, take absolutely nothing for granted. Call it how I see it. You guys do with that what you will, but I also do not take our audience for granted. So thank you to everybody who watched us or has listened to this. Best of luck to you. Let me know, where you may disagree or any other bets that are standing out to you. And best of luck, whatever you do. We'll be back to discuss it all Sunday night. Enjoy the rest of your week, or enjoy your Friday and your weekend, guys. And Women's Origin tonight as well. Queensland needs to get the upset win to level the series. So I'll be cheering the Maroons in that one. Enjoy if you're watching that too, guys. Cheers. Lego.